when you were both young women, girls, what first stimulated your interest in science and biology and medicine? Janet?
Well, I was fortunate in having an outstanding teacher when I was a sophomore in high school, who actually, I went to a Catholic school. I wasn't Catholic, but she was really showed me how science was such a logical area of study and thought, and it was the logic and the orderliness that that attracted me first.
I think conceptually it was exactly the same for me. In my case, it was doing story problems with my dad when I was a little girl. My dad was 60 when I was born and was in ill health by the time I was 5 or 6 years old. And we used to watch the simultaneous Cubs and White Sox games on the television. As soon as television came in, they'd split the screen, and Jack Brickhouse, and I can't remember who his sidekick was, would each take one team, and they'd be on the phone with each other. And of course, this elicited enormous numbers of algebra problems that could be developed. And my dad, who didn't have any particularly advanced education, but was very good at math, would create these story problems, and I would try to work them out. And then I, like you, had the good fortune of going to a very fine high school, New Trier in my case, and having excellent mathematics teachers there.
But you didn't ever get the feeling that science wasn't for girls. Was that ever a feeling when you were at school at that time?
No. My mother was a school teacher, and you know, I seemed to have fair amount of intelligence, and it was just assumed that that I was going to go on. They were both graduates of the University of Chicago, and so Chicago was a natural place for me to go.
Did you go to an all-girls high school?
I went to an all-girls high school for 2 years, the first 2 years, and then my mother knew about scholarships to the University of Chicago for high school students in their junior year, and I applied and took the exam and was accepted.
I guess in my case, it never occurred to me that I would be a scientist as a professional. Never crossed my mind. I had confidence in my ability to do math, and I assumed I would be a high school teacher of math, which is an absolutely worthy job and a lot harder than the job I actually do. And I first studied genetics as a first-year graduate student at Berkeley when I took a genetics course from Kurt Stern. It was the first biology course I ever took. It was the last time Dr. Stern taught it. He was about to retire. I fell in love with it. I thought, imagine being paid to do this. It was, as you say, the pattern, being able to sort out patterns and see the beauty in patterns and biological patterns with an underlying mathematical structure. I loved it.
So then you both became researchers, and I'm going to ask this first of Janet, because she practically became a researcher when there weren't so many women in research at that time. And I just wonder, what was it like at that time?
Actually, I got married the day after I graduated from medical school. And my goal was to have a family. And as President Obama said during the award ceremony, I treated medicine as a hobby. I shouldn't tell the selection committee, but it was. I worked, and I had an MD, so I actually, in the beginning, worked in clinics, including a clinic for retarded children, which is where my interest in chromosomes developed. And I could really learn about chromosomes the first time we went to England. And that changed me from being a clinician and working in clinics to wanting to complete the research project I'd started in England. And so I have a great debt to Oxford and to the British for providing me with the opportunities that I could then pursue in a totally different career than I had started out.
But Oxford wasn't always women-friendly at that time, in the early 60s, I don't think.
Well, but you see, I was in a separate laboratory, and also as an MD,
Were you in pathology? Were you...
No, there was a laboratory at the Churchill Hospital, which was actually built by the Americans during the Second World War, and then taken over by the British. And Laszlo Lida was there, and he was interested in the pattern of replication of human blood cells. And since I wanted to study chromosomes, about which he knew nothing, but he said, well, why don't you study the pattern of replication of chromosomes? And I could learn about chromosomes at a nearby laboratory just a mile or so away. And so I had the combination of somebody teaching me chromosomes and Laszlo as a research mentor, if you would, because I had no training except an MD, and that's not very good training. Well, I mean, I was about to say it's not very good training for science, but there are many, and one can name many individuals who have only an MD who've gone on to do marvelous things, including winning the Nobel Prize. So, but you're trained to do different things and to have a different focus of your efforts in medicine than in science.